Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 2, Episode 3, Projections. This episode aired September 11th, 1995. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode, which was Initiations?
No, it was perfect.
Not a great episode.
Wasn't bad.
But the podcast was perfect, as always.
I enjoyed it. You just didn't like it because it had Chakotay.
Too much Chakotay.
As you keep on saying, he was brain dead a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Why are we pretending like everything is normal?
It was Nog Kazon edition.
Somebody on Twitter said they're here for all my Chakotay takes. So I feel vindicated, at least with one listener.
I thought the Kazon makeup in that episode was good. I know you didn't like it or thought it looked silly, but I thought it worked.
I just think the Kazon are silly. That's the whole problem.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. The Kazon are just kind of annoying rather than threatening.
Yeah. Well, they're like the Ferengi in TNG.
Oh, yeah.
We thought they were going to be scary.
Right.
It turns out they're just ridiculous.
Kind of. Yeah, that's okay.
Well, we're behind schedule and recording, so I feel like we should get going.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Stop procrastinating.
Yes. Do it. Go.
In the cold open, the doctor appears in an empty and dark sickbay asking for the nature of the medical emergency, but no one responds. He asks the computer who activated him and learns he was activated automatically when the ship went into red alert. He calls the bridge but gets no answer, and he learns there are no crew members on board. He says, "The ship is empty?" And Majel Roddenberry says, "Affirmative." And we go into the opening credits.
I think they all just left and didn't want to say goodbye.
Well, I'm sure that's what he's worried about, but maybe not the red alert part.
Did they run into another wormhole that takes them into the Alpha Quadrant and they didn't want to go through telling the doctor?
And the red alert is really that they activated self-destruct?
Oh, yeah.
And didn't tell him? Oh, that would be mean.
The computer's counting while this is all going on.
Well, I have to say, after the first two kind of mediocre episodes to start off the season, this is how you start an episode.
Yes.
Because now I want to watch.
That's a great Star Trek opener.
So after the credits, the doctor keeps asking the computer for info, but it doesn't know much.
Yeah.
There are some structural integrity breaches and the ship is running on auxiliary power. Everything else is offline. He checks the recent bridge logs and he finds a log from Janeway saying there have been heavy casualties and the warp core ejection system is offline. She orders everyone to abandon ship. The computer tells the doctor that all escape pods have been launched and there are no humanoid life forms on the ship. He sits down a little in shock, but also to record a log when someone starts pounding on the door and trying to force it open.
Now, did that make you think of First Contact?
Oh, yeah,
with
for
the
sure.
bugs in medical?
Yes.
I'm a doctor, not a doorstop.
So the doctor grabs a hypo spray and stands by the door ready to attack, but it turns out to be B'Elanna.
Robert Picardo really makes the doctor seem like he's terrified at that moment. And he's a hologram. Why is he terrified?
Yeah, just disappear.
Yeah.
And then, reappear later. I think he has control by now to do that.
Right.
Well, B'Elanna says the internal sensors are offline, so the computer can't read the life signs on board. 2 Predator-class Kazon ships attacked, hitting Voyager with plasma torpedoes. She and the captain stayed behind to try and avoid a core breach. The Kazon then used a tractor beam on all of the escape pods and then jumped to warp.
Not good.
This episode's already so much better than last week's. So much more exciting.
Yeah.
During this scene, the doctor tries to use a tricorder, but it doesn't read any life signs on B'Elanna. This is important later, so just wanted to mention it.
Yeah, that should be your first clue.
B'Elanna says the captain was hit by a falling support beam and she's stuck on the bridge. The transporters and turbo lifts are down, so she says she's going to send the doctor to the bridge. Over the past few weeks, she's been working on setting up a remote holo projection system so the doctor can have access to other parts of the ship.
Wow. Is that Star Trek Prodigy or what?
Oh, absolutely. The doctor is annoyed that he didn't know about this, but B'Elanna says they didn't know if it was going to work, and the captain didn't want to get his hopes up. That, too, is like, I don't know that would be true, because why wouldn't it work? B'Elanna does some work on the computer and then gets ready to transfer him to the bridge, but before she does, she tells him to avoid energy discharges like force fields and phaser charges. She says she's going to head to engineering to work on critical systems, and then she sends the doctor to the bridge.
I think that's just good advice anyway. Avoid force fields and energy discharges.
From phasers. Mm-hmm.
Even if you're a biological life form.
Yes. On the bridge now, the doctor finds a few dead crew members, one who looks melted, which is strange.
And they also nicely film it. So the one guy that's down who looks just like Harry, you don't see who it is.
Right.
They were definitely giving you a nod to, wait, is Harry dead?
Yes.
The writers were tricky in this episode.
Very tricky, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he finds Janeway under a fallen beam, though she's not exactly trapped under it. She's just somehow next to it, unconscious.
Lying there, yeah. Traditional roof beam.
Yeah.
Stop putting them in your ships.
The tricorder, again, doesn't work, but he uses a hypo spray to wake her up, which is so funny. I mean, if a beam fell on her, you'd think we'd have some broken bones, but she sits up and she's fine.
Serious concussion, head injury, just hypo spray, she'll be fine. Just give us some stimulants.
Well, that's what they did. It's like smelling salts or something.
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? Internal bleeding? I don't know.
Her bun now is all askew, and she clearly has a headache, but somehow she looks incredible in this state. I can't explain it.
You know what my note reads here?
What's up?
Hot, rumpled Janeway.
There's something about, maybe it's because of our memory of the greatest episodes of Voyager are when Janeway's under fire, when she picks up a phaser and she's just going to end whatever is going on. And so anytime she gets into that state, it's like, oh, here she comes. But no, she looks good. B'Elanna gets comms working and Janeway gets to her feet. She sees the dead crew members, but she can't be distracted. She needs to restore bridge control. She tells B'Elanna to start scanning for the Kazon ship that took the crew. And then Neelix calls saying he's having an emergency, and he says he needs help in the mess hall. And then we hear phaser fire, and the comms go out. It's very dramatic. Janeway tells the doctor he needs to go to the mess hall because it would take her too long to get there.
Because the turbo lifts are down.
Yes. So now we go to the mess hall, and we find a single Kazon trying to shoot Neelix, who is fending him off by throwing fruit and calling him names. It's actually very funny, this scene.
Yeah, because every time he tries to shoot him, Neelix throws something, and the guy has to duck.
Yes. Which is ridiculous, but it's very funny.
Yeah.
Eventually, the doctor tackles the Kazon and Neelix hits him over the head with a heavy pan, knocking him out.
Almost cartoon style.
Yeah. There's also an amusing moment of Neelix panicking over blood on his shoulder, but it turns out to be tomato paste and not blood.
Am I going to die?
Neelix describes trying to evacuate when this Kazon appeared and started attacking them. He distracted the Kazon, letting Kes get to the escape pod. Now Neelix points out that the doctor is bleeding on the back of his head.
Yeah.
This makes the doctor sort of panic and sit down. He says he's not programmed to bleed, so he asks to be sent back to sickbay to check his program. The doctor goes back to sickbay and is shocked to find the blood is real, and he realizes he's experiencing pain.
Yes, I loved that, where he says, I'm not programmed to feel pain. He's so surprised.
I wish I wasn't programmed to feel pain. He uses a tricorder to scan himself and finds that while he can't read anyone else in the crew, the tricorder is registering him as human.
Because he's real.
Yes, the computer backs up this new reality, saying he's not a hologram, but the real Dr. Louis Zimmerman.
Yes, that was really quite shocking.
Yes, and we, of course, know Dr. Zimmerman from Deep Space Nine, where we met him.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's the engineer who created the EMH.
And there's a funny little end of scene here where he pulls up the Dr. Zimmerman on the computer and notes how he looks a lot like me.
It's funny that he says that he looks a lot like me when they are the exact same person.
Yes. I think one of the things that's helping this episode is Robert Picardo playing the Doctor as this really surprised duck out of water.
Yeah. But it's not a duck out of water because ducks can get out of water.
That's true. A fish out of water.
It's a fish. Yeah. As an EMH outside of sickbay.
And he's selling it.
Yeah, and he's very consistent throughout the whole episode. Well, before the Doctor can dig into this mystery any farther, Janeway, Neelix, B'Elanna, and the Kazon prisoner all come in, and the Doctor immediately starts scanning everyone. He says the tricorder isn't picking up anyone's life signs, but it does show that he himself is human.
Yep.
And Janeway's like, what? She says, maybe it's just a problem with the remote projectors. Multiple signals may be confusing the computer. That's one of my favorite lines. The computer is confused. She says, I'll deactivate you and reinitialize your program parameters. Like, let's do a classic Windows reboot.
Yeah. Have you tried turning it on and off again?
So she tries, but nothing happens. So then she tells the computer to shut down all holographic systems, and something shocking happens because everybody disappears and the doctor remains.
Yes.
And now you're like, what is happening in this episode? That was a really cool moment.
Agreed. Because there's no indication that any of them aren't real.
No, except for the tricorder part. Yeah. After a dramatic ad break, the computer now says the others were holographic simulations. So the doctor looks in the computer and finds that all of the crew is just holographic programs.
Even giving the memory locations where they're stored.
And then the bad news. Lieutenant Reginald Barclay appears.
And it turns out the doctor was really running an A-team program.
Oh, no. He says, "It's me, your assistant." And the doctor's like, "I'm sorry, what? Who are you now?" And Barclay says, "Oh, no, this is bad." He tells the doctor that nothing he sees is real. He says this is a holographic simulation taking place at the Jupiter station. And the doctor is the real Zimmerman stuck inside of that simulation.
Yeah.
He says Voyager isn't real. It's part of a program meant to study the psychological impact of long-term isolation on a crew. And the doctor says, "This is preposterous."
I know you don't like the character, but I always kind of liked Reg. I even liked him in the tiny cameo he had in First Contact.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be because I watched the A-Team as a kid.
Well, I think the problem is the episode where they introduced Barclay was not very, shall we say, woman-friendly.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. Yeah.
Anyway, people who watch TNG, you know what I'm talking about. So I was just never a big fan. He's got some interesting traits, which I think could have made for a character I enjoyed, but not the way that they used him.
And made fun of the fact that he was kind of on the spectrum.
Yeah. But he's a terrible portrayal of a person on the spectrum. They're so much better at it now.
Well,
because they know more what it is.
Well, I think they were playing it to make it funny.
Which they always did in the 90s and probably before. Because they didn't understand what it was.
Well, they used it was something to mock people for. Oh, he's not normal.
He doesn't know how to talk to women. Haha, isn't that funny?
Yeah. He's not a normal person.
Yeah. Barclay says there was a kinoplasmic radiation surge on the station, and they've been unable to shut down this program for the past 6 hours. He tells the doctor that the radiation is affecting the memory centers of his brain. This really winds up the doctor because he's sure he's been on Voyager for 6 months, not 6 hours.
Yeah.
But Barclay keeps insisting he's human and Voyager is the hologram.
He's very insistent and very convincing.
Definitely. He even at one point slaps the doctor to show that he feels pain and is real. This does confuse the doctor, but doesn't quite convince him. Then Barclay disappears to consult with the others he says he's working with.
Yeah.
He returns saying the problem is worse than they thought. He says we can't shut down the program or beam the doctor out because of the radiation. If they can't get the doctor out of this program within an hour, the radiation will completely oxidize his neurocellular structures, which sounds bad. The only option is to play out the program because there's no way to artificially end the program. He either has to get Voyager back to Federation space or destroy Voyager.
That makes me think of something. If you're messing with the program from the outside, and these are the premier people for generating holographic programs, they're the best in the Federation, couldn't they, just tweak the program?
Mm-hmm.
Have it, oh, you found a wormhole, we're back in Federation space.
Yeah, or you send in a bunch of Borg cubes or a bunch of Romulans and they destroy it,
Oh, yes, the traditional 8 Romulan ships decloak one after the other and destroy you.
Yes, exactly.
That's the go-to for how to end a simulation.
When the doctor balks at destroying the ship, Barclay says it's just a simulation, so destroying it is no big deal. By the way, this reminds me of the Prodigy episode where they're stuck in the holodeck.
Oh.
Because they also thought that the answer was to just play it out until they got to the end, until they realized, no, somebody is just trying to distract them.
Right.
And keep them stuck forever.
That was a good episode. Along with most of the episodes of Prodigy.
I think they need a safe word or something with the holograms. You just say something and just no matter what is going on, the program just shuts down or ends, jumps to the end.
Yeah, hard-coded into every program. You say, I don't know, Philadelphia, and it shuts everything down.
Yes, exactly. Just one word, and then the program says, go to end. Easy. I fixed it. The doctor refuses, saying he doesn't even know how to do that, meaning destroy the ship.
Yeah.
Plus, Barclay could be an alien intruder and making all of this up. Yes, he could. And at this point, we don't know either.
Right. There's no indications of what he is.
Barclay sticks to his story. When the doctor continues to not believe him, Barclay says he knows what to do, and now the doctor is sent back to the pilot episode.
Yes.
Where Tom and Harry are asking him to help injured patients shortly after Voyager was flung into the Delta Quadrant. Barclay appears again and says, we can't shut down the simulation, but we can restart it. And the doctor realizes this was the first moment on Voyager when he appeared.
Yeah.
When Paris starts asking who Barclay is, the doctor asks, who programmed Mr. Paris to be so annoying? And Barclay says that he's responsible for that, modeling Tom after his cousin. And then the doctor says, computer, delete Paris. And Tom disappears.
Oh, that was funny. I think that's a little bit of a subconscious desire from the doctor there.
Oh, yeah, he really enjoyed that, to be sure. The doctor's getting closer to being convinced, but he's still unsure.
Yep.
He says if he destroys the holographic memory core, then he should also be destroyed. But if not, then okay, maybe he's human. He's able to walk outside of sickbay, which is very strange to him. We're still in the pilot episode when we get to engineering.
Yeah.
This is at the moment where Janeway is stopping a core breach.
Oh, yeah. The first instance of hands-on Janeway, she's just going to fix the problem.
Right.
And surprisingly, she didn't try and use a phaser and just shoot it.
The doctor gets into an argument with Janeway and tells the computer to delete her, but it doesn't work, and Janeway tells some security people to arrest the doctor and Barclay. The doctor starts telling Janeway about what's happening with the caretaker, also known as the Banjo Man, which was funny.
Yes.
Who called him that?
I don't remember ever hearing that one before.
No. He just distracts her long enough for everyone to be kidnapped, as they were in that episode, and transported to the array.
I like how calm and almost upbeat he is again in this scene of like, oh, you're about to be kidnapped and tortured, but you'll survive.
Yeah, everything will be fine. So now we go back to our plan of destroying the holographic memory core. But the doctor fires a phaser at it, and guess what? Nothing happens. The doctor doesn't understand how if the holographic simulations have all been terminated, why would the holographic ship still exist? Excellent question. Barclay keeps saying he has to destroy the ship. He has to destroy the ship, just like he's a broken record.
Yeah, he's a little bit obsessed with it.
The doctor is having a real crisis trying to decide what to do. Plus, he's also now having bad headaches.
Right.
Barclay says your brain is being flooded with radiation and you're dying. He tells the doctor to fire at the warp core.
Yeah, telling him to set it to maximum power.
Yeah, I'm still not sure this makes any sense, but okay. He gets ready to fire at the warp core when Chakotay appears behind him.
Yes.
He shouts, "Stop!" And he tells him not to listen to Barclay. He says he's lying. He says none of this is real. It's not the simulation you think it is. He tells the doctor everything around him is part of a holographic simulation being projected by his own program, meaning the doctor's program. The captain told him to take a day off, but while he was running a holo program, there was a kinoplasmic radiation surge, which created a feedback loop between the doctor's program and the holodeck computer.
Yeah.
All of this is a holographic simulation generated by the doctor's codes, subroutines, and memory circuits.
Don't you think that's a bit weird that Janeway suggested the hologram take a day off?
But that's actually what happened, right? It ends
Yeah.
up being the truth. Well, I would say she's trying to treat him like a member of the crew. And it's not so much that the
yes.
doctor needs to rest. It's that the doctor needs some new experiences, right?
Okay, that's good headcanon there.
Oh, thank you.
To improve the doctor's program, you need to increase the range of its experiences. So, yeah, it would make total sense you'd want him to play holo novels on the holodeck. Maybe not Janeway's ones.
Although it seems like he just created Voyager. Because he has no imagination. Yeah.
But this is such a classic. Two people telling you conflicting stories, both believable.
I love it.
Both of them are, it's your life's on the line if you do this or you don't do this.
It's one of those Star Trek goosebump moments.
Yeah.
And they have it light just, really dramatically. And Chakotay is standing behind looking like he's sort of the hero. And meanwhile, Barclay is standing there shouting, "Do it, do it."
Right.
And the doctor's like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do." It's really good. It's a good moment.
Oh, agreed.
So Barclay keeps telling the doctor to destroy the warp core, but the doctor is very confused.
Yeah.
The existence of Chakotay and also the story from Barclay must be quite confusing.
Well, Reg is so convincing.
Yeah.
He's being very persuasive.
Yes, because he's remaining calm.
Yes. And he seems to have the doctor's best interests at heart.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
But Chakotay says, "You're trapped in this program and we've been trying to reach you for hours." He says if the doctor destroys the simulation, as Barclay is suggesting, he will end up destroying himself because of the feedback loop.
Yeah.
This is very confusing. I mean, either he will die because he doesn't destroy the ship, or he'll erase himself because he does destroy the ship.
Yes is the answer.
It's a lose-lose. The doctor asks Chakotay what he's supposed to do, and Chakotay says, do nothing. Trust me. We're working on getting you out of here.
Yeah.
And then it gets worse, because now Kes appears with normal human ears.
Yep.
And Barclay says, this is Kes Zimmerman, your wife.
Wow.
And Kes says, listen to Reg. He's trying to help you. But Chakotay is like, this is all fake. And I think the real problem here is that Kes is the one person the doctor really likes, so he's tending to believe her.
Yes, I think that's an important part of the story here. Why we're seeing Kes at this point. Because he's learned a lot of his emotional behavior from her.
Right.
A lot of the ways he's improved clearly come from Kes.
Right. Barclay now asks which he'd rather be, a real person or a hologram lost in deep space.
Wow.
And Chakotay says, first of all, that's not a fair question. But anyway, Chakotay says,
I don't know. Maybe some people would look at that and go, I'd love to be the hologram.
Chakotay says, this isn't about what you want. Just because you're made up of projected light and energy, that doesn't mean you're any less real than someone made of flesh and blood. You're our friend and we want you back.
Oh.
It's a very sweet speech.
I really like Chakotay's speech here. He seems to deliver it with real passion, real concern for the doctor. And the way he tells him, you're our friend and we want you back. I think this might be Chakotay's best performance to date.
Why wouldn't this be the captain, though? I wish it had been Janeway, because we've already spent some time establishing Janeway's relationship with the doctor. We've spent no time establishing Chakotay and the doctor.
Okay, I can headcanon it. They need the best technical people. So B'Elanna and the captain are the ones working on this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was also thinking maybe they felt like because the captain had already been in the simulation, maybe he would just go, oh, you're just a hologram.
Oh, that's a good point.
I just wish that the speech had come from the captain is all.
Yeah.
Or if they had even sent in Kes, that would have been funny too. Now he's got two Kesses talking to him.
Oh, that might get a bit confusing. Which Kes do you believe?
Right. The one with the elf ears or the one with the human ears?
Oh, the elf ears.
The doctor is struggling to get up off the floor, and Kes kisses him, saying, whatever happens, I love you. Oh. And Chakotay says, I love you too. No, he doesn't. He says, just hold on a little longer. And then the doctor says, I always wanted to tell you, Kes, that you're beautiful. Just as he sort of wakes up in sickbay, looking up at Kes, who has her elf ears back. And she says, oh, thank you.
Just like really nonchalant. It was funny.
Tuvok and Harry are also there when the doctor wakes up, saying they were able to shut down the simulation that the doctor's program was running and transfer him back to sickbay.
Yeah.
We hear the story again about the radiation surge happening while he was in the holodeck.
Those subspace anomalies are just chaos.
Yeah, anytime they just need something bad to happen, it's a subspace anomaly.
Yeah, they pop up all the time and everything just gets thrown at the wall.
And it just basically means something happened, we don't know what it was, but it caused this bad thing.
Some kind of energy surge.
We learn the Kazon attack never happened, and Tuvok says, apart from this, it's been an uneventful day. I love that part of this scene. It's so funny.
Yes. Delivered like such a Vulcan.
The doctor asks who this Barclay guy is, and Harry says he was part of the original engineering team that designed the doctor. Barclay's job was to test the doctor's interpersonal skills.
You got Barclay to do that? It explains so much about the doctor's behavior.
It's literally what it says in my notes. This explains a lot of things.
Yes.
If Barclay was testing the doctor for interpersonal skills, it makes perfect sense that he didn't have any when he was activated.
Oh, dear.
Oh, that's funny. Chakotay then calls the senior officers to the bridge. Everyone leaves but Kes, and she starts acting weird right away.
Yeah.
And eventually says to the doctor, so you don't really love me. She says, I guess our marriage is over, and calls him Lewis. The doctor starts to panic when Barclay appears again, saying, please just destroy the warp core. Like, how many times do I have to tell you?
He's still in the simulation. Oh, you writers. You tricky devils.
Yeah, you always get double-crossed in these things. Like when you're in a dream, and then you wake up, but you're still in the dream. And you wake up again, you're still in the dream.
Oh, well, the opening of First Contact.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Answering
Yeah.
the question I've always said. How on earth does Captain Picard actually sleep at night?
And it turns out pretty badly.
Yeah.
The doctor shouts, "Somebody help me," and he tries to leave sickbay, but he runs into the armed Kazon from earlier.
And it all starts flipping into like a weird wide-angle lens view.
Yeah, which they sometimes do to show a person is disoriented.
I always remember that in the episode of TNG with Data, where he's having dreams.
Oh, yeah. Tom Paris grabs him and tells him to help the man on the biobed, so he heads to the biobed only to find himself in a yellow uniform. And Dr. Zimmerman looks up at him and, in Captain Janeway's voice, says, "Try to calm down, Doctor. Everything is going to be fine."
That was so unsettlingly creepy.
It was weird.
Coupled with the wide-angle lens and the way they shot it, it was like disturbing, which I think was the point, in which case they managed to pull that off perfectly.
Now the real Janeway grabs the doctor and spins him around, saying, "Do you know who I am? And do you know where you are?" The doctor looks around and says he appears to be on the holodeck grid. He seems to have his memory intact, and that makes Janeway breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
And we hear for like the fourth or fifth time about the radiation surge that caused this problem.
Yep.
The doctor tries to get his bearings, and Janeway transfers him back to sickbay.
Yes, when he's getting his bearings, he says, "And Kes is my assistant and not my wife." And the look from Janeway is awesome.
Yes.
She does some of the best, just, what kind of looks.
Yeah.
I love it.
Like in your dreams, dude.
Yes, it's so surprised. It's really good. It really helps sell that scene.
Now Kes enters sickbay in her cute purple elf outfit. This is my favorite.
Yes.
She thinks it's really cute that they were married in his delusion. Kes says, even though it wasn't real, maybe we don't tell Neelix, my childish, jealous boyfriend.
Oh, dear.
The doctor asks why he didn't detect that his program was degrading. Instead, he had a sort of existential crisis about the nature of his existence.
As he called it, an esoteric dilemma.
Right. Kes says she too sometimes asks herself who she is and what her purpose is in life.
Yeah.
That seems like a perfectly normal thing to her. And of course, she just thinks the doctor's like a normal person.
Right. That's one of her strengths with dealing with the doctor. She treats him as an equal.
Right. But he has a programmed purpose, and he knows exactly who he is. And Kes gives kind of a wry smile and says, "Are you sure about that?" And then she leaves.
Oh, Kes, come on. You're trolling the doctor. Wow.
The doctor then goes to the door of sickbay and he sticks his arm outside, seeing that he only exists within the confines of sickbay, as expected.
Yeah, he seems very happy after that all is right with the world. Everything is where it should be.
Yes. He kind of smiles and he says, "Huh," and the episode ends. That was a funny ending.
What a perfect ending.
Yes. Do you have over-analysis?
Yes. First thing, I assume Barclay is somewhere in the computer. The records of him are stored as one of the creators of the holographic program, which is how he appeared on the holodeck.
Yeah. There's a lot of sort of confusing things like that.
Yeah.
Like, how did he get into the version of the program that included Barclay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe Barclay had some comments in the code.
Oh, and the holodeck computer extrapolated Barclay out from the length of the comments because they weren't just normal comments, they were small novels.
Yeah, it's strange because what's confusing is how much this Barclay character talked about Voyager.
Yeah.
Even though Barclay would not know about Voyager. And it's like, but how did the doctor know about Barclay? Because somehow Barclay got created. But the reason Barclay knows about Voyager is because the doctor knows about Voyager. It's very confusing.
And it is kind of funny that they make a nod back to Barclay being in the holodeck addiction program, that they use Barclay in this situation.
But it would have almost been more believable if the doctor had known Barclay. You know, like he had known him as the person who he had had conversations with during testing or something.
Uh-huh.
But it's like they reset him out. But I did think maybe there are some sort of training programs or test simulations or something that they could run if they needed to, and Barclay was in those. And that's where that character came from.
Great headcanon. I also have another possible. Barclay suffered from holodeck addiction, right?
Right.
Maybe Barclay is in the Doctor's medical files as a classic example or as a prime example of this. So the Doctor would know about Barclay from a medical standpoint because it's in the files.
Okay. Okay.
I need to know why Barclay is in here. It's just very...
I know. And why does Harry know? I guess maybe because they were watching the simulation from the outside or something and they looked him up. I don't know.
That would be a workable explanation that is just in the documentation. It's in the release. The release notes were written by...
It's in the release notes. Yes, exactly.
Oh. Next point, and this is maybe a little dark one. Is there a subtext here of recovery from addiction? That's part of the story with the Doctor.
I don't know. I'm not sure I follow.
The Doctor is caught up in a cycle of addiction. And Barclay is the character who wants to basically keep him there.
Oh.
And Chakotay is, if you like, the intervention, the other side of it, trying to get him out. But ultimately, it's the Doctor has to get himself out.
Has to make his own decision.
Or am I reading too much into it?
That does seem like a bit of a stretch, but I can see the parallels. I mean, I see what you mean. So I suppose it's possible.
But it's not immediately apparent.
It's not blatant. Yeah, it's not blatantly obvious, but I can see what you're getting at.
Okay.
But it's almost like too much of a happy ending or something. I don't know. It's too easy at the end because someone else does pull him out.
Yeah.
He doesn't really decide to get out.
If it was Deep Space Nine or Battlestar Galactica, they wouldn't have got out and it would have been a horrible ending.
True.
This is a very Trek ending.
Well, I have a point about Deep Space Nine in my overanalysis notes as well.
Next thing. I think the commitment of the crew to helping the holographic Doctor, who's basically just a program, is really quite touching.
Yes, but also they need a doctor.
Couldn't they just reboot the program? Go back to the original?
Well, it said it was going to erase him.
Yeah, but...
It didn't say that we'd be able to restart him with no memory.
Don't they have some of the original data tapes with the Doctor on them?
I don't know. This feedback loop is a little fishy. It's a very convenient technobabble story.
Missed my TOS reference there.
I didn't miss it. We could have the data tapes or we could get out the Klingon books and start reading them on the bridge.
Oh, maybe they got a data rod.
Well, data rods they were still using in this time. But I like the speech that Chakotay gave, right, about you're our friend, we want you back. Maybe Kes sent him in there and said, you should, try this tactic.
Oh, right. Come in as a friend, not as your senior officer.
Yeah.
Next thing. This whole thing is really a very complex scenario that the Doctor's own program put together. Together with the holodeck computer. But Chakotay says it's his program that's doing it.
Yes.
Including things like the Kazon attack and the whole scenario. This really makes me think of Moriarty. Was this the kind of thing that was happening with that program? That the program was becoming self-aware, self-learning? So it was starting to adapt itself to build these fantastical scenarios. Are they telling us here that the Doctor is becoming way more than his program?
I think you could read it that way, or you could also read it that he wasn't actually really able to create a world outside of the one that was already inside of him, which included his creators, which maybe he just didn't have immediate access to. But it seems like he pretty much stayed just within the realm of his own knowledge, including the stuff that they were jumping back to, which had just been things that had happened to him earlier.
Yeah.
So maybe I can see where you're going, but I think in the show, it actually showed him to be quite confined to just what he knew.
Good point.
Except for Barclay. Barclay was the only thing, because even his wife was just Cass, was just another character he already knew.
But he made up the whole attack scenario and the Kazon fighting with Neelix.
Yeah, the Kazon attack. And Neelix throwing fruit at him.
Yeah.
And he also, he kind of made himself the hero by having to, he was the only one who could jump from place to place to sort of help save the day.
Ooh.
And I think that, he got a taste for that in the Beowulf episode.
Yeah, right.
So that's what I mean, where I feel like kind of they are sort of showing that this is expanding his programming in a way. But in other ways, he remained within the confines of it. So you're right. It's at least a slight leap, if not a giant leap.
It's an evolutionary leap for the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I think my last point here is, so, things like the Doctor being able to feel pain, is this going to be retained in his normal program?
Yeah, because how does a program feel pain?
Yeah. Is he now evolving to more perfectly simulate the attributes of carbon-based life forms?
I don't know the answer. That's a tricky one.
He should send a message to Data. Oh, I've pretty much achieved humanity in 1/2 season and 3 episodes.
Right.
Took you 7 years and you're still not there.
Like in Kung Fu Panda, when he achieved inner peace.
Oh, poor Shifu.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have organs.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have anything internally, so he can't really feel pain. But the program, or he can be programmed to react to something as if he does.
Yeah. I see his program having a problem here. He has perfect medical knowledge. The program could take that medical knowledge and apply it perfectly to himself. So he basically ends up with a fully functioning biological system.
Yes, it could.
In holograph form, because the computer knows exactly how it should work.
Yeah, it could. It would make him a better doctor if he kind of knew what some of the things were like.
Oh, that's what it feels like.
Doesn't always help real human doctors either.
Yes. And that, I think, wraps up my overanalysis.
Okay, I have a few things. I think we maybe already talked about them.
Go. Let's hear it.
Oh, my first one was if Barclay was testing his interpersonal skills, it makes perfect sense that he didn't have any. We already talked about that. But I did wonder, so can the doctor now move around the ship, or was that really the thing in his simulation that he was making up? That what I would really like is to be able to go to the bridge and the mess hall and engineering. Like, was that part of his fantasy, or now will he be able to jump around?
No, I think that is part of his fantasy, along with being able to just delete Tom.
Yeah, agreed. I do think we are a little bit loosey-goosey with the things that were going on in the program, like the tricorder, for example, what it could read and what it couldn't, which I guess is fine because it was just a program trying to fool another program.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That's how I would see it, yeah.
I guess they have the excuse of the feedback loop and the fact that it had introduced pain. Okay, it's confusing. But I also was saying, okay, wait a minute. Or have they really kidded us and the simulation is real? Like in DS9, when you get to the end of the thing with Benny.
Yeah.
And Far Beyond the Stars. Was it real? Was the whole thing really just in Benny's head? And is this whole thing really just a simulation at Jupiter Station?
That's great that you bring this up, because I was expecting at the end that they would be on Jupiter Station, that Zimmerman had actually built this program. He knew who the crew of Voyager was. They maybe had got the message back from the Romulan that they were stuck out there, and he'd built this simulation around it. So we would have had a Voyager episode that wasn't actually on Voyager.
That would have been a great ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could have made that work.
You could have made that work. Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
And just, you find out, oh, it actually is a simulation. And then it would have also been funny if they just sort of ended it that way and just went, end of the episode.
Oh.
And, they didn't like jump to showing the actual voyage or anything. They just went, no, end of the episode. And then next week we just start over because it's episodic television.
And anything that disagrees with canon, you just wave your hand at it very rapidly.
You just wave your hand. That would have been funny.
Yeah.
Oh, the last note that I have is not an overanalysis, but just a comment, which is the best holodeck programs are the ones with stakes.
Yes. Yes.
'Cause then they're good. Then they're exciting. Otherwise, they're just silly.
This is basically a holodeck episode that worked.
Yep. So in Janeway's Leadership Corner and also in Women in the Future, there's nothing to say because everything was a hologram. So nothing to say.
Do you believe, though, that Janeway could get that rumpled?
Yeah, I literally think that's our main memory of her, is how she just goes into dirt on her face, hair a mess. I'm going to murder all of you people to save my crew. That's the Janeway I love. I'm waiting for her. I know she's coming. All right, let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Absolute 2 thumbs up. This is a fantastic episode. I'm going to lean towards this might be one of the best Trek holodeck episodes.
I mean, there aren't many.
Yep.
There's a handful of really good ones. But I agree. Total thumbs up. I really enjoyed it. Though, I mean, I could have probably used a little bit less Reginald Barclay, but I'll get over it.
Yeah.
I was, when it started and you and I were watching it together, and I was super excited for the episode that they teed up about the Kazon. I was like, this is so exciting. And not because I love the Kazon, but because of how it opened and what happened, and the whole crew had been kidnapped. And I thought, this is how we should have opened the season. This should have been the first one. But then it turned out to be something else, and I still enjoyed it, even though it was completely different from what they were trying to fool me into believing.
This is an episode I did not remember anything about. I don't think I've seen this episode very many times. So rewatching it was fantastic, because I was like, I do not remember how this ended.
I apparently can't remember anything, because I don't. Every one of these that we watch, I'm like, I don't remember.
I was getting total flashes of Total Recall, the 90s Arnie version of this in the episode.
Oh my gosh. The things that I keep flashing to are episodes of Prodigy, because now you can see so many of the ties between Prodigy and this show. Yeah. Which is cool.
The Janeway being able to transfer all over the ship in the same way that the Doctor is doing here.
The other thing I would say is that Robert Picardo is pretty good in this episode.
Yes.
He's really good.
It's kind of funny one of the things we brought up at the end of last season is characters who'd really sort of found their place, knew where they were. And everyone is sort of learning. And what's funny is Picardo, more than any of the others, seems to know exactly what the Doctor is and how to play him.
Yeah, for the most part, the characters are really likable, really watchable.
Yeah.
Like I think about on TNG, I'm sure you've always got characters, when you see it's about that character, you like the episode. When you see it isn't, you're like, ugh, right? And for me, I wasn't a huge Riker fan, and sometimes we get annoyed if it was a Riker episode. Of course, now I'm the biggest fan of Riker.
Yes.
And I wasn't a huge fan of Geordi, but if it was about Data or the captain, of course, I was all in, or the Doctor or Troy. But on this show, it's like, okay, this episode's about the Doctor. Great, I'm in, right?
Yeah, great.
Or if it's about Tom, okay, I'm in. It's only Chakotay that irritates me. And I guess I'm not a huge fan of Neelix either, but he's not the main character very frequently.
It is funny that out of the group of friends who watch Star Trek, I think I'm the only one who tolerates Neelix.
But even with the characters I don't like, I mean, there are still moments where I like them. I thought Neelix was pretty good in Jetrel. Yeah. There are just times when he just really aggravates me, and I don't understand, like, why are we endlessly talking about him being a bad cook? It's like repetitive, which just means there's not enough depth to the character. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to watch an episode that he's in. All right, that wraps up Season 1, Episode 3. Come back next week for Episode 4.
Which I will be doing the notes for, and I really don't want to do this one.
Oh, no. Is it bad?
It's a stinker.
Oh. Should we skip it?
No, we should do it.
Okay. It's not, like, insulting to women?
No, it's just a stinker.
Okay. Okay. Well, then we have to do the bad ones. Because, we skipped 2 on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
We could skip a maximum of 2 on Voyager. Is it bad enough to take the skip card?
Maybe I've given too much away.
It's good to set my expectations low. Then I'll probably think it's okay. I'll watch and be like, what are you complaining about?
This is my second favorite episode of the season.
Well, come back next week. It's probably Episode 4. Maybe it'll be Episode 5.
It'll be Episode 4.
All right. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com, or you can tweet us, or you can hit us up on Instagram, or on Threads, or on YouTube. Everywhere we are ReBingeIT. You can also join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.